Oh yeah, it's another beautiful day out on Lake Champlain. Let's get into it in a moment here and see what we've got to work with, but should be a number of interesting things going around this vicinity. Right here, real nice. They've got a Quercus macrocarpa, nice bur oak, famous for having its giant acorns, which are obviously still in development now. But more of a Midwest species of oak, and we'll get into this as we kind of get through the day. But Lake Champlain, for the unindoctrinated, this entire region, more or less underladen by calcareous, limestone and limestone-derived bedrock, dolostone, the whole 9 yards, and being low elevation, surrounded by areas of high elevation. We're probably at about, I think we're just about 90, maybe 100, maybe 90, 95, 100 feet here above sea level. So you get this interesting combination of geology, unlike anything else in New England. This low elevation trowel, go just east of here, you end up in the Green Mountains, cross the lake, you end up in the Adirondacks. It's got a number of interesting species. Most of the Midwest disjuncts, so species that are common or just prevalent in the Midwest, that tend to peter out in New England, are doing so in this region, and that has to do again with the bedrock, with the elevation, with the moisture regime, with the precipitation regimes. So you get a lot of cool stuff here that is either disjunct from its main populations out in the Midwest, entirely endemic in some cases, or just very unusual from New England. So without further ado, we're going to get into it, and we're going to check out what's going on here. Okay, forest here, a bit more of a pain in the ass to maneuver through, as I thought. Most of the species I'm looking for are actually going to be along the shore of the lake, so I'm thinking I might put the kayak in the water and go from there. Dark, beautiful forest here. Lots of Thuja occidentalis, some hardwoods, some pines. Not that many hemlocks. Ton of this over here. I'll show you this. Plenty of this cool citrus family member, Zanthoxylum americanum, growing in the understory here. Plant smells wonderful when you crush the leaves. Zanthoxylum, that's the same genus as Szechuan peppercorn. So when these things go to fruits, I've been known to pop one or two in my mouth just to get that nice tingle. Nice compound leaves. Citrus family, Rutaceae, I believe the only native member of that family. Should theoretically be present all around New England, but I feel like I only ever actually see it in Vermont, and even then, when I see it in Vermont, usually like hedging old fields. Don't get me wrong, really cool plant, smells wonderful, and just fascinating that this is like a natural citrus. Quite a few species of Zanthoxylum as well around. So, but this isn't what we're necessarily here to talk about. So let's keep going around here. We're gonna hopefully see some of these really cool aquatic affinity plants. But there's two that I got to check out that are growing up on the bluffs. The rest should all be down at the lake level. It's not really what we're looking for, but still two interesting plants. A shame this isn't in bloom. I believe that this would be Trillium grandiflorum, which I have seen before. Last time I was here in Vermont about a month ago. That's about when it was finishing up. And you also have one of our old favorites, Asplenium platyneuron, growing basically exactly you'd expect it to grow. Ebony spleenwort. Heck of a lot easier to see that one than it is to see the freaking green spleenwort. They look remarkably similar. Just got that green stem. That green stem is the difference. And a habitat. Hopefully I explained before. Asplenium platyneuron, number one, you can see this just outside of Boston. Oh yeah, there's the story right there. Doesn't mind growing, likes it rocky, but it'll grow out of soil, rocky soil. You get what I'm saying. Anyway, this is, Just a real fascinating little patch of forest down through here, but we're going to keep trudging on because I still haven't found any of the target species. Maybe I can I'll cobble something together one way or the other, though, rest assured. Yeah, it's quite a fall down there, but look how beautiful that lake is. Scenic, wonderful Lake Champlain. Lake Champlain. I'm just messing with you. Maybe I mean, that's like glass. Maybe we will take the kayak out, you know? I mean, I took it out in some chop. It's nice. And I mean, God, there's not a breeze to be felt right now. Well, and it's a nice sheltered area. We'll see. That's beautiful, though. I don't know why. I'm just feeling like I'm having a rough go. You get like this every once in a while, you know? You come out and you do a long haul. I had a good day. I had a good day yesterday. We had a great day yesterday. Today, not so much. The one of the target plants I wanted to really find. One of the roads was out to access it, and the other one seems to be on private property. So we'll have to come back, maybe see if we can figure that out. But look at the nice contorted trunks of that fallen Thuja. He's still clinging on, you know. Seriously though, that's a tumble. Yeah, well, not what we're looking for, but those of you who have been, you know, watching a lot of the videos lately should maybe recognize this is Asplenium ruta-muraria. Growing in a little chunk of limestone coming out of this crack here. You know, again, not what we're looking for, but still a welcome thing to see. Sun's coming out now. I'm feeling ever so slightly more optimistic. If I can get this next species down, it'll be smooth sailing, I think, because the other two should be relatively easy to access. One has a trail named after it, so I mean, should be simple enough, straightforward. But then again, those are famous last words, aren't they? Asplenium, again, sorry about the Asplenium kick lately, but you guys gotta learn to love them. They're fascinating ferns, obligate lithophyites, only growing out of calcareous rock, although I've seen Asplenium ruta-muraria growing out of like basalt, you know, out of which is still can still be high pH. There's something going on with the chemistry there that I'm not really. I forget what it is. Something about the high amount of iron often present in mafic rocks lends itself to raising the pH, I should say. So, Asplenium ruta-muraria. Hopefully, that's given us some good luck, and we'll be able to see, something else. Okay, right here we finally have our first actual target species of the day. Thank God we got at least one. It's not easy going through here. What you're looking at right there might resemble, you know, poison ivy, but it's not. It's Rhus aromatica. So this is the fragrant sumac. So many people are familiar with, Rhus typhina and Rhus glabra, the smooth, and the staghorn and smooth sumac, respectively. If you're down in the Cape, you might be fortunate enough to know Rhus copalinum, the winged sumac, or shining sumac, depending on who you ask. But right here is our fourth and final native species of Rhus in New England. This has been introduced to like other counties out east, but it's truly native in western New England. You know, generally down I think it's every county, most of the counties in western Vermont and then western Connecticut, seemingly absent from western Mass, but I think it might grow there, just not natively. In any case, you know how it is sometimes. In any case, this guy's growing down here, and its strong resemblance to poison ivy, you know, does come with the fact that, you know, it's in the same family as poison ivy, Anacardiaceae. So those compound triphid leaves there do give the impression of poison ivy, but you'll note, and kind of what tipped me off at first, because I'm like, oh, I'm just look for something that looks like poison ivy, is that lack of that center rachis. So they say leaves of 3, leave it be, but as I've said numerous times, that's bullshit, because it doesn't have 3 leaves. It has significantly more than 3 leaves. It has leaves that are, you know, composed of 3 leaflets. So had this been poison ivy, I mean, the overall gestalt would be a little bit different. Poison ivy is a hyper variable species as well. Had this been poison ivy, you would have, seen that little rachis connecting that terminal leaflet to the petiole, and I mean the thing smells pretty good too. Here's a little bit bigger of a bunch right there, and then there's another. Move this over for you. There's another patch of it growing right there. So, arguably the species I was at least excited to get, but we'll take what we can get, and we'll be grateful for it, because this is not, I mean, it's relatively common here in this part of New England, out in western New England, Champlain area, but what was he going to say? Just the general habitat type that it likes to grow in is not something easily accessible, and in fact, where I'm at right now seems to be almost completely overgrown. I thought this was like a bulb-loving plant that likes it, open and exposed, and we're, indeed up on something resembling a bluff. But the, what was I going to say? But the number of invasives here is stressing me out. The resource I got sort of to kind of help me map out where I wanted to go today. Oh, I see another one. It's the third one. I can see. You obviously can't see it, but I'm looking at it. I wonder if these are shade tolerant or if these get shaded out. I'll ask somebody that might know. However, the last, big population count through here was done in like the 80s, I want to say, 80s or 90s. So I'm not sure, how recently they've come through to do a recount. It looks like they do conservation, through here, but they on their own side, I don't want to, say too much, but it just seems like there was a big push to get a nice conservation effort going here, and then that's kind of gone by the wayside. Some of the trails are really sketchy too. So anyway, we're going to push on. We get one more species that I think I can access through here, and then I'll be able to get in a kayak and we'll go around and we'll see what else we can find here in the lovely shores of Lake Champlain. Sorry, I also got like 3 hours of sleep last night, so you got to cut me some slack. I'm just a wee bit tired perhaps. But in any case, there you go. That's Rhus aromatica. If you're just like, well, geez, that just looks like poison ivy. Deal with it. No berries on the thing, no flowers before it even leaves out. But unlike a lot of the other sumacs, which leaf out, like summer, like Rhus typhina is getting ready to bloom, like it's blooming like right now in southern New England. And then, pardon the sloppy camera work, but we're still dealing with just massive amounts of Zanthoxylum americanum, borderline the dominant species in the understory here. It's a real fascinating thing, and I love how it just grows with Thuja occidentalis. They are frequent bedfellows, it would seem, which is just absolutely wild to me. Anyway, we'll cut it off here. We'll take some more looks around here. Okay, now things are getting interesting. So this plant is not in flower. I'll be happy to supply a picture of it flowering, because I actually did an episode almost entirely about this plant and one of its relatives. This is Cypripedium arietinum, and it's not in bloom. I didn't expect it to be in bloom. I knew it was going to be past date for it, but still wanted to come see it, because again, with a lot of the species growing over here, there's a lot of invasive overgrowth, a lot of overgrowth in general. It just makes me wonder, about the overall health of the whatever. I'm sure they're doing. I am sure that the people who are involved with the maintenance of this easement are doing the best they can. There's only so many people. That's why you should always pay your dues. If you want to, related to a tangent I went on in a similar episode. It's not about the rare shit. It's about native species in context. When they are rare, it's not necessarily the scavenger hunt of it. It's the why is it so rare? What climatic, ecological, edaphic conditions are making it so that the species is rare? Yada yada yada. Now, Vermont, similar to how New Hampshire is like that one place in the world you can go where you want to see the globally rare, Isotreme medialoides. It's locally common in some areas. Vermont is basically that equivalent for Cypripedium arietinum. Vermont, actually no, that's not true. It does grow rather robustly. It's globally vulnerable, but it's, I think if it's not it's S1 or S2 in Vermont. I think it's S1 or S2, if not extirpated from most states in New England. So, it's a vulnerable species to poaching, which, you should never, ever, ever, I don't even like, taking, collecting seeds, one thing. You shouldn't collect. My rule of thumb is, unless it's a completely secure plant, like an S5, you shouldn't remove any of it vegetatively, and even then you should only really do that from private property, or if you have permission from a landowner, permission from a conservation committee, whatever. You know, like which I don't even know what you would be talking, like what propagates from a root. It's relatively like a cucumber root, like Mediolia virginiana. That's a really common, plant that it's hard to grow from seed, but you can grow it rhizomatously. If you got that on private property, you have permission to go collect that. Take a piece of the rhizome. You split them like you would split plants in your garden. You know what I mean? You just take the root ball, split it in half, and plant it in two separate places. So the thing will keep growing. And I do that all the time with a lot of my asters. Anyway, just generally speaking, I kind of frown upon, obviously, poaching. You should be removing an entire plant from the ecosystem, which is a crime. But I don't even really like, even foraging kind of just strikes me a little bit weird, strikes me a little odd. Anyway, I digress. This species, Cypripedium arietinum, likes these rich, ledgy woodlands. I don't believe it's entirely dependent on the low pH. I think it seems to prefer it. Really, it likes a nice rich humus. It grows in New Hampshire. It's extirpated from Massachusetts. I'm uncertain about it. I can only imagine it's extirpated or not present in Rhode Island. I don't know what its status is in Connecticut or Maine, but I wanted to highlight it here. Number one, because I'm obsessed with orchids, especially Cypripedium, this whole genus. Just got good footage of Cypripedium reginae. I'm going to do a whole 40-50 minute high product. It's going to be like a plant spotlight, but it's instead of being 10-15 minutes long, it's going to be probably close to an hour, maybe less, maybe whatever, it doesn't matter. And I just would really love to highlight these wonderful. I mean, they're probably our most. Yeah, you get some showy Platanthera, but as far as species that I've come across, orchids that I've come across, Cypripedium's probably the most bang for your buck. They are just out of this world looking. Some of the Platantheras, they get the tiny little green flowers. A lot of the LGOs, like the Neotias and the Liparis, don't impress people, even though they're fascinating plants. And, a lot of the really, really, really showy stuff, like Calypso, Arethusa, those have become basically absent. So I am of the opinion that this sort of thing and the relative rarity of these plants needs to be stressed, not to fetishize the thing, but just to, highlight the impact that, needing now more than ever with the fucking selling off of the federal lands. They're going to get rid of BLM land. They're going to get rid of the USFS land. And I imagine in New England, we don't even have that much of that. You have the White Mountain National Forest, and you have the Green Mountain National Forest. And I think that's it. Everything is either a state park outside of that, which is usually you have to pay for admission, whereas just you can go I was just doing this last night. You can just go boondock out in the Green Mountains. If boondock is a bad term, I'll bleep myself out and I'll just say, what do you call it? Backwoods camp, whatever. You get the idea. It's driving to a trailhead, parking your car, hiking in and off trail, however far they want you to, or if there is no trail, some places you just pull off to the side. You just set a tent out in the woods. It's usually how I do it when I come to Vermont, because most everything, the nice thing, I'm getting way off topic here, but last thing I'll say about this, Vermont's nice because if you're in the Green Mountain National Forest, generally speaking, you're never more than an hour away from the spot. This was 50 minutes from where I camped out last night, and I'm coming from the complete opposite side of the state. So it was a nice halfway point, you know what I mean? I digress. So, protect your native lands, highlight conservation efforts. Again, these are not plants to be fetishized and lusted after and coveted. They're meant to be conserved, appreciated, explained. I just generally, it's why I did this. I jumped into this because I didn't see, a lot of people draw comparisons between me and other plant-based YouTubers or people who do plant podcasts, and there's some great ones out there, but they're generally speaking not really covering the New England habitat to the extent that I would want it covered if I was, just getting into this again for the first start. That's what I'm trying to do. And I'm not saying you should, jump in. Every time I come across stuff like this, I'm also documenting everything, and I'm taking I'm submitting it off to the state, plant counts, plant health, what invasives are nearby. You got to pay your dues. So, blah, 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 blah. To wrap the whole thing up, Cypripedium arietinum, a plant that very likely could be wiped off the face of the earth if things continue, maybe it'll hold out in Canada, where they probably have a little bit more respect for their resources, for the actual wealth that we own. You know what I mean? This is wealth. It literally can't be bought. You cannot recreate, a Thuja and juniper dominated limestone bluff on Lake Champlain. Money can't buy that. I guess it can. You can buy property, but if you buy this property, you cut everything down. These species, this habitat, especially like these vulnerable and fragile species like Cypripedium maritianum, they don't come back. Like, not immediately anyway. Maybe the Thuja will grow back in, maybe some of the hardier, like some of the more common species, but you really lose a key aspect of, I guess what passes for culture. It is in a way culture. It's your home. You know what I mean? Show some fucking respect. Anyway, Cypripedium maritianum, beautiful adornment to, I guess, our home here in New England, and one that you find, on the scenic shores of Lake Champlain, up and down. Again, seems to do relatively well in Vermont. I've seen it before in a different part of the state. I know it grows in New Hampshire, like the central part of the state. But I think we're going to cut this segment off here, because that's a static shot of the plant not blooming. For the unindoctrinated, this little bract up here subtends the ovary, and this wrinkled up thing would have been the flower. I'll put a picture up at some point, and then the link to the video where I'm covering this actually in bloom, and I go in depth. Just wanted to pontificate. It's got the nice colline leaves, no basal rosette. If it was a pink lady slipper, Cypripedium accal, you'd have two fat leathery basal leaves. And then Cypripedium parviflorum grows substantially larger than this, has a couple other different little doodad features too, different leaf shape to it. And then Cypripedium reginae would grow in a completely different habitat, and is also substantially larger. And the bract on that thing actually looks different. Even when that's in fruit, you can tell just from the bract that it's a different plant. So anyway, we'll cut this off here. I just got two more species I want to see. One, we're going to have to put the kayak in, which would be great because I can do that, pack that up, and then we have to actually drive someplace else, I think, to see our last target plant. Take it easy. Okay, there you go. There's a good example of a Quercus macrocarpa growing as it would in the American Midwest. All right, so Quercus macrocarpa, it doesn't have as strong a marble limestone affinity as Quercus muhlenbergii does, but just like Quercus muhlenbergii, it's a species you're going to find abundantly out in the Midwest that is very rare in New England, except where conditions approximate conditions of the Midwest, such as the conditions of the Champlain Valley. There's a reason why, mass farming has been abandoned in much of New England, except for, right around the Champlain Valley. Very rich soil, although right here is kind of a glade, which makes sense because this is like a disturbance species. This comes up like at the edges of fields, and it forms like these beautiful savannas. They can grow quite large. This one's not that big, but like out in the deep soiled, prairie, say you get a little patch of like oak juniper savanna growing with the juniper there. That makes sense. These would be kind of like one of your mainstay trees out there in the Midwest. Same with Quercus muhlenbergii. Just generally speaking, two species whose niches are filled by other more successful species in the East Coast, like Quercus ilicifolia or even Quercus prinoides. Also we've got white oaks, Quercus bicolor. Don't get me wrong, we've got our oaks out here that become considerably substantially more rare out in the Midwest, and vice versa. Things become rare, generally speaking. Things become rare on the edges of their ranges. Go figure. That only makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, check out the leaves on these things too. I have to zoom out because they're huge. Very tapered at the bottom. You get these lobes and then like a nice fan shape at the apical portion. Huge leaves. Thing makes huge acorns. It's got big balls. All right, we're gonna move on. We still have two more species to do, and I do have to drive like 3 or so hours back home this afternoon at some point. Okay, so now we're out on the water, and you can really see you know, the layers in that sedimentary rock. Some of the layers are actually from the rise and fall of the water level, but others are actual layers of sediment laid down. Beautiful Thuja occidentalis draping the cliffy shores here. How nice is that? I can hear my voice echoing out against the wall. It's pretty cool. Hey, buddy. Do you know where I can find Trillium venosum? Been looking for it for a little while. I don't really see it. All these gravelly areas look like they're pretty inundated with overgrowth. That's okay. You don't have to tell me. I respect it. Well, take it easy, buddy. I hope you're having a great day. I really do. I hope you're having a great day. Man, I don't even care about finding Trillium venosum. Just the view here alone. It's freaking spectacular. We're gonna go check out maybe one or two more spots that could be lurking, but that's nice. That's real nice. Just all sedimentary rock. Just layers from when there was an inland sea here. I mean, I guess you could kind of still liken this to an inland sea, but when it was much larger. Well, I'm just about beat, and I gotta paddle all the way back. I did end up finding a Trillium. Not sure if this is our guy because there's no flowers on it, but it seems to want to also suggest that this could be Trillium revolutum, which would also be an interesting find. But it's a Trillium. It's in the habitat. We're supposed to be seeing Trillium venosum, and look at the underside of the leaves there. It's nice. Revolutum is the waxy leaved Trillium, which if that's what this is, that'd be impressive. There's the base there, distinguishing it, you know, from columbines, from which its leaves can superficially resemble. This thing was known from quite a few populations around here. I wonder why it's doing so poorly. I had 3 locations, didn't see it at any of them, and I'm not even sure if that's it, but we really should sign off. Hopefully this is it. Another, you know, common Midwest species, disjunct out here. Grows up in Maine too, on like the ice scour sort of communities, but otherwise, you know, rare in New England and not generally known. This might be it. I kind of, part of me does kind of doubt it though. I don't know. Going off again, flowers are important. The key breaks for this genus are all in the flowers. So I think with that, I should really pack up, head home. We'll try to see the Shepardia. So this is either the sign off or there'll be an addendum where I go see if I can find Shepardia canadensis. We'll see how much time that takes. Yeah, okay. Well, the funky beat continues as was once said. We're gonna go check out what's going on over here, kind of on a different, like what do you call it? Like a different cape, so to speak. So now we're back up on top of the cliffs like we were earlier. Just wanted to show you this real quick. Check out this weirdo. That's the fruit on Uvulari grandifolia or grandiflora. So the flower comes out through the leaf, and that's just the actual structure of the plant. It kind of reminds me of a streptopus, but even streptopus doesn't have the petioles actually piercing through the leaf. And obviously that fruit coming out on the top would be a non-starter for a streptopus. It's a uvularia. Only get Uvulari grandiflora on the western side of New England. Not super rare out here either. Just, you know, got to remember that geology. And I did double check. We are on limestone, by the way. That geology plays such a huge role in what plants grow, and what plants are growing around you. You know, you really can't, you know, get too deep into botany without starting to poke around, sniff around, you know, through a few geology textbooks. You don't have to be an expert. You just need to know like the basics, like how different minerals create different opportunities for different plants. Different plants need different minerals, I think is what I should say. And just generally, there's going to be affinities based on, you know, soil moisture, soil chemistry, bedrock chemistry, etc., etc., etc. Oh, man, they got a splenium, just a splenium platineuron everywhere here. Not that I'm complaining, I love that plant, but trichomanes, not platineuron. What am I talking about? I'm an idiot. I mislabeled one earlier. Let me correct myself. They got a Asplenium trichomanes everywhere here. Hey, look at, there's a hepatica that grew up there. Yeah, trichomanes. It's probably, you know, definitely the calcareous loving subspecies. God, I'm not sick of them yet. I'm really not sick of Asplenium yet. If we saw Asplenium rhizophyllum today, which we would make sense to see it in this type of habitat. In fact, as soon as I say that, I did not script this. I swear to God, I did not script this. There you go. Giant patch of Asplenium rhizophyllum, the walking fern. We got stuff to do, so we won't spend too much time talking about this guy. But long story short, it's another Asplenium. All right. The sori aren't ready yet, but they're staggered in that you can see them starting to form in those trademark lines. And this guy's gimmick, you see his little tips there? Takes those tips, roots them back into the substrate, and then just keeps the colony going. Again, Asplenium are goddamn fascinating ferns. You know? This threw me off more times today than I care to admit. Columbine leaves. And then, of course, you've got your geranium, Robertinum, Herb Robert, which some people consider a weed, but it's also cool because it's an indicator plant for a high pH soil. Anyway, all right, we're gonna cut it off here. I just got nothing left in the tank. You know, try to cram in a bunch of these over the weekend. It's a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but it also beats the crap out of you. I slept like 2 hours last night too. Just thunderstorms all night. Same old story this year, it seems. Anyway, we're going to cut it off here. The Shepherdea, I mean, I checked out every nook and cranny that was accessible to me. Looking for the thing. The habitat seemed right everywhere. You know, sometimes, you know, a plant's just growing someplace you can't necessarily access. We'll get around to checking it out at some point in the future. In any case, we got the two interesting Asplenium species in there at the buzzer. And with that, we're going to call it quits. Take it easy, folks.